Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Frank Zaccari, and this is our seventh life-altering event chat. And I'm honored today to host this chat on managing your cash with my good friend Dee Bowden. Now, this conversation is brought to you by the by the Tag Team, which is a partnership with the Abraham Group, headed by Jay Abraham, who's the best marketing mind and business builder in the world. And Jay has increased the bottom line for over 10,000 clients by an excess of $21 billion. And then my company, Life Altering Events, and we're experts in business and organizational development, as well as finance and scaling of organizations. Now, the Tag Team members have all reached a point in our life where we want to see the next generation of business owners thrive. It's a very elite and exclusive program for entrepreneurs who are looking to make an impact in the world and get the best return for their business. If you think you have what it takes, go to my website, frankzaccari.com, for application details. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the number one problem, number one headache for small and mid-sized companies is managing their cash. We create a business, we get through all those hurdles, we start getting sales, we start moving forward, and the number one reason businesses fail is failure to handle their cash. Now, we've all heard the statement, cash is king, yet this continues to be the number one reason why businesses fail. Now, I had an intriguing conversation with my friend Dee Bowden, who is an expert in cash management and cash collection. In fact, I'm going to read this. She is known as the most creative cash collector mentor in the world. So I'm going to let Dee explain the problem and give us all some potential solutions. So Dee, welcome to our seventh Life Altering Event Chat.
Well, Frank, first of all, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're listening to this fabulous conversation around the world. I am Dee Bowden. First of all, Frank, thank you so much for the opportunity to be a part of this conversation, your seventh one. Wow, that's awesome. 7 is a special number. That's a good number. That's a good number. So, what a title! Creative cash person. That's fun. Cash. What was the title they gave me?
It was called the Creative Cash Collector.
Creative cash collector. That's right. Because I normally refer to myself as the revenue recovery specialist, but I like cash collector specialist. It's all the same thing. Because here's the funny thing: most people ask me, what is it about collecting cash, especially in business, that's so interesting? So, as you know, I usually like to tell a story. So let's get started with a story. So about 15 years ago, I worked for a small IT firm outside of Boston, where I'm from. I got hired as a collector. So that hence the term collector. So they had $8 million worth of sales on the books, not in the bank. So they sold IT services, computers, software licenses, a whole bunch of great things in the IT space. I was hired and they said, okay, here, Dee, here's your list of accounts. You need to get to work. I happen to be a believer, so I said a short prayer, kind of went like this. Hey, God, yes, Dee, I need some help. I'm just like, I don't know how to do this because I don't know about you, but I had not collected $8 million worth of sales in a long time. So I was like, how did this happen? Because when I'm looking at the accounts receivable aging, I'm looking at 0 to 30, 31 to 60, 61 to 90 and above. And I'm looking at all these buckets going, that's a lot of money to be outstanding across all those buckets. Now, after my short prayer, I do what I do, which is get to work. Now, I believe, and I share with Frank, that I told Frank this, that collections is 2 things. It's problem solving, number 1, is an extension of customer service, number 2. And most people are like, who says that? I do, because it's what's true. Because if you're in business, whether you're a small or medium-sized business, and you've got AR, accounts receivable, that's 60 days past due, 90 days past due, that's a flag for me. That's like problem number 1. It's like, first question is if I'm going to talk to you about this, the first question I'm going to ask you is, okay, what happened? You're like, what do you mean, Dee? Kind of what I said. Like, what happened? Because normally, if somebody hasn't paid you, there's usually some kind of issue or problem. And most people avoid that because they don't want to mess up the relationship with the customer. They're like, we'll fix it later. We'll fix it later. Well, you not fixing it ends up being 30 days past due, 60 days past due, 90 days past due. And then you're like, oh crap, or some other choice words. You're like, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. Right, because your cash flow is now impacted. Because you're like, oh, I should have addressed this earlier, but I'll get to it. So back to the story. I get $8 million of AR handed to me, say my short prayer, get to work. I recover $6 million, true story, $6 million in 60 days while working part-time.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So we get that part done. And then the CEO of the company says around October 24th to 5th, 2005, he says, listen, we need to come downstairs and have a chat. Now, if you are a small business owner or medium-sized business owner, whenever you tell your staff we need to have a chat, most of us who have been around, we're like, nope, that's not a good look. And I put some fun in and say, listen, if you have a boo special person or a booette, and you're like, we need to chat, you're like, nah, I don't really want to talk to you today. I just, no, whatever it is, no. So I kind of put that in as funny because most of us, when somebody says I need to have a chat with you, just because of our human nature, we're gonna go, I don't want to do that. So we all come downstairs and he says, listen, and we all kind of take a deep breath. He's like, this is not gonna go good. Because now, mind you, because I'm part of a collections team, I collected my $6 million. I'm thinking, oh, we're about to get bonuses. So I'm thinking positively. He was like, no. He says, listen, we want to thank everybody across sales, contracts, order entry, invoicing, and collections, my lane. Thank everybody for your services. Appreciate everything that you've done. But we made an executive decision. We're closing the company, and you've got 30 minutes to gather your stuff and leave the building. This is 2 months before Christmas. This is a true story. This is what happened to me personally, which is why I'm so passionate about knowing the state of your accounts, because this company, like a lot of companies, has a sales team. You have a contracts department. You have order entry or deliverables. You have invoicing, and then my lane, accounts receivable. You think that all of those cylinders are working well, and one of them wasn't, which was my lane, which is collections. The sales obviously were happening phenomenally, but the rest of the sale wasn't complete, and the money was not in the bank, which is why they had $8 million worth of AR outstanding. So I am like, this is a problem, and I realize it's a problem because of a couple of things. Number one, collections. Now I'm talking commercial, business to business, business to corporation, business to government. Most people don't think of that side of collections as uncomfortable or uneasy. When people hear collections, they think the IRS. Number one, that's the first thing people think about. Or if you had a car representative, that's not really cool. Or you've had medical bills or credit card. They think of collectors as these aggressive people that are constantly hounding you for payments. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about collections inside of your business, because you have sales, contracts, order entry or deliverables, invoicing, and collections, my end. And I'm talking about making sure that you know the entire state of your flocks or your accounts, and that if there's a discount or not discount, if there's a disconnect in any one of those things, what do you need to do immediately to fix it? Because as I said earlier, collections is two things. It's problem solving, number one, and it's an extension of customer service. So if you have a relationship with your business, with your customers, I would think you would want to be on the phone, or if it's not you as a CEO, whoever works with you, that person needs to see the lay of the land and say, okay, what accounts are about to go from 0 to 30 or 31 to 60? I need to be on the phone making that phone call to follow up and say, hey, is everything okay? Pause, let them tell you. And number two, thank them for telling you what's wrong so that you have the opportunity to fix it. That's what makes what I do different, because most people are just going in, just trying to collect the money, but you're not recognizing you have to build a relationship with your customer continuously. That's what makes collections for me different.
Now you deal with a number of government, business to government. So yes. What is the process? How do you approach somebody when you're calling them? Because usually they want to pay, but as you said, something's not right. So what do you say when you call?
So the first thing before I get on the phone, the first thing I'm doing is I'm talking. So for example, let's say you said to me, "Hey Dee, I have a government contract and I've got these invoices that are outstanding." The first thing I'm going to ask you is, we're going to have a conversation first. I'm going to ask you, where's your contract? Because the first thing I want to know is where in the contract, what is it? How does it talk about the billing? Because the first question I need to ask you is, did you prepare your invoice according to the terms of the contract? Because especially if you're dealing with a government agency, if you haven't prepared your invoice correctly, that's a automatic ding, and they're not going to tell you. They're not going to tell you. You're going to find out when you keep calling them and you keep getting this answer. Nobody's responding to you. That's because it goes through this automatic system, and if it doesn't meet all the bells and whistles, it just kind of gets flagged. And you're like, oh, well, how come I haven't gotten paid? Oh, well, you forgot to put this on pink paper, on with certain dots at 3 o'clock on Friday, and you put it on yellow paper on 2 dots on Thursday. Well, like I said, I'm being facetious, but my point is that if you have a government contract and you ask me to go collect on your behalf, we have to look at the contract because I have to see what did you submit, and I need to make sure that you basically ticked and talked to all the check marks, make sure things got submitted correctly. And if not, we have to fix it. That means either a phone call is made, or you may have to do what's called a revision to the invoice to find out what's wrong. But you have to make a phone call. Kind of goes like this: Hi, I'm Dee. I have contract number blah blah blah, and I'm calling from agency on behalf of agency da da da, and I'm looking to find out what's the status of this invoice. It's against contract number blah 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 for the amount of. Then I gotta pause and then let them tell me. Oh, we need a second. Can I confirm this, and this? Of course, confirm everything. Then they're gonna say, oh, well, in the system it says that your invoice was rejected because you forgot to submit one of the reports. Oh, oops. Yeah, that part. That part. So when I said earlier about the first thing we're going to talk about is what does your contract say? Because if your contract said you submit the invoice and what's called the receiving report or proof that you submitted the product to the government, I got to have proof of that so I can prove to them, oh yeah, it was submitted. Oh, okay. Oops. Can I put you on hold for a quick minute, please? Sure. Because they have to go research it and then come back and tell me so I can tell you what happened. And then you and I will have a conversation to figure out if we have to fix it or is it an error on their part. But the point is, you have to get on the phone and you have to get comfortable with making the call, asking the right questions. And my personal belief is to say thank you, because people take for granted that somebody taking your call to help you solve your problem to get paid. Just the courtesy of saying thank you means a lot. People, Frank and I talked about being old school, and I talk about how important courtesy is. It's a small thing, but it goes a long way. Please and thank you, especially when you're trying to recover your money, it goes a long way.
Oh, absolutely. Now, you told me a story where you do some closeout contracts.
Yes.
And that's a little bit different style. So how does that work? And what is a closeout?
So what a closeout is basically for government. So in the government space, they have what's called cradle to grave. Cradle means the beginning of the contract, and closeout or grave is the end of the contract. And what that basically means is this. So a government agency may have a list of contracts that have already been awarded to, okay, simple example. I can take you. If you don't mind using you, Frank, as
sure,
an example.
No problem.
So let's say you have a training contract with a government agency. We won't name one. We'll just say as an example. So my job or my goal to close out the contract is this. Hi, Frank. I'm calling on behalf of such and such government agency. I'm calling to confirm that you received the contract for X amount of dollars. Did you provide all of the products or services? Excuse me. The contract was worth $10,000. You invoiced us for $8,000, and according to the government's record, there's $2,000 left. I'm calling to find out, did you provide everything you were supposed to? Number one. Number two, the $2,000 that's left on the government's books, is that correct? Or do you need to return that money back to the government? Because you basically, when you prepared the contract for the government, you did an estimate. You estimated it would cost you $10,000 to provide this service, but when you got in there and you're like, oh, well, we estimated $10,000, but we really only provided $8,000 worth of service. Well, it's kind of like when your mother sent you to the store and you had $10, and she's like, okay, where's my change? Well, the government is a lot bigger, and they're like, well, where's my change? That's what we're looking for. We're looking for our change, because at the end of the day, that money, if that money is sitting on the books uncollected, that's our tax dollars. That's putting this to work, and we want to make sure that every agency has somebody checking to make sure that those monies are not sitting there uncollected and aren't able to be reused someplace else in the agency. And so that's what closeouts do.
That's amazing. Well, we try to keep these things short and sweet and to the point. So give me the number one thing that you're talking to a small business owner who is almost in crisis. What's the number one thing that you tell them?
Number one thing I tell them is this. Do you have a tracking system for your accounts? They're like, what? They have deer in the headlight look. Like, what's that? Okay, it's old school as Excel. Number one, real simple. What's the name of your customer? Your tracking system lays out basically the state of your company. So column number one, what's the name of your customer? Column number two, what's the contract number? Column number three, what's the value? How much is the contract for? Column number four, what did you sell? Column number five, when are you supposed to deliver it? Column number 6, when are you supposed to bill for or invoice for it? And number 7, when are you supposed to get paid? I want you, every small business owner that's listening needs to know, you need to be able to always know, how many customers do you have? And by that, the reason I ask you is, the name of your customer, the contract number, how much is it for? Because that also tells you how much you have in sales. So for the month, okay, if you have 5 customers with all of them are $10,000 contracts, and that's provided you sold the full 10,000, we're looking at $50,000. Okay, cool. Does that mean you're supposed to get $50,000 this month? I don't know, but I won't know. I won't know if I'm working with you, and you won't know what's going on if we don't know the layout of your land. So we know how those columns tell you the overall picture of your accounts, and then it's like, okay, how much is due for sales for this month? And the last thing is, if you have a salesperson, I always say add his or her name to the end of the row, because he or she, number 1, needs to be a part of this. Number 2, you need to thank them for helping you get that customer.
That's incredible. That goes back to the old basic, know what's going on. And as having been a small business owner for many, many years, you're so focused on securing the deal and then going to get the next deal. And then there's a drop off somewhere in the operation as to, oh, wait a minute, we didn't get paid. How are we going to get this done?
Right.
So ladies and gentlemen, if you are in a situation before you get to crisis, it's always better to take action before you have to take action. Get a hold of Dee. She has the expertise. She's got a proven track record, and she can help you lay this out and train your people so that you're not in crisis mode. Because as we've said, the number 1 reason small businesses fail is failure to manage their cash. Absolutely. So, our ladies and gentlemen, our goal here is to give you hope. That's the whole purpose of these short chats. And we want to get you to you're going to get through the situation. You're going to come out the other side better if you listen to what Dee has been telling you. And remember this, ladies and gentlemen, during hard times, do 3 things. Look up, get up, never ever give up, and better times and better people will come into your life. And let me leave you with this. I say this every week on my radio show and on every talk I ever give. The secret to walking on water is to know where the rocks are. And today, Dee showed us where a lot of those rocks are. Join us again next week. Dee, thank you so much.
Thank you, Frank. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.